I'd always walk the extra mile. Let the light of love surround me. Be my beacon, be my guide. Let me shine, shine, shine.
This summer, I found myself in Solon, North Dakota, a tiny town on the western side of Sioux County on the banks of the beautiful Cannonball River. While waiting for the auto repair guys, I noticed a thrift shop across the street. I am unable to pass up a thrift shop, so I went over and checked it out. It appeared the shop was the only place in Solon to get clothing and household items, aside from the meager offerings at the gas station. As is typical of many small towns in North Dakota, I expect that not all folks in Solon had reliable transportation or much disposable income to go shopping in Bismarck. The other thing I wondered was whether they got many donations from outside the immediate community. Given the number of people shopping and chatting, it was easy to see the importance of the shop. I made a purchase and left, but I could not get the shop out of my mind. It seemed that the shop had a need for more items to sell, and residents had a need for more affordable items within their community. After my last rummage sale, I gathered up the best unsold items, loaded up my Pilot, and made a 60-mile trip to Solon. Driving back home, I felt good because I had had a sense of having helped other people, even though it was in a small way. I had given, though I didn't feel the gift was particularly generous, as I have many more items I can donate. With regard to gratitude, I felt it for the folks that staff the thrift shop. I felt gratitude that I had excess items in my life that could benefit others, and the means to deliver those items to the shop. Another strong sense I had was that I got a lot more out of my donation than anyone else would get from it. Why did I give? Was it generous? What part did gratitude play in giving? Why did I feel so good? Normally, I wouldn't think about these things, but I have been doing stewardship work here at the UU for quite a few years now, and I am always learning new things about giving. This year, the stewardship theme is giving, generosity, and gratitude, and I have been learning a lot about how these concepts can work together to become part of a spiritual practice. I hope you will learn a few of these things today too. So what is giving? Giving is defined as the act of transferring something from yourself to some other person or entity with no expectation of a return, no quid pro quo. For example, Pat Conrad brings brownies to an event here and has no expectation of return. She'll be happy if one or two are left over to enjoy at home, as likely as that sounds with this group, but she doesn't expect it. Pat has gifted bars to her UU community. Generosity's root is gen, which means birth. Generosity creates something new between giver and receiver. One of the best ways to understand generosity is from the Bible. In a relevant story, a poor widow puts a small coin in the alms collection at the temple, but the coin is nearly all she has. A wealthy merchant donates many coins to alms, but he is so wealthy that his gift means nothing to him. The widow is generous beyond measure, but there is no generosity in the merchant's gift. Generosity is measured through the circumstances of the giver. Gratitude comes from the Latin word gratus, which means thankful, pleasing. Gratitude is a strong feeling of appreciation for what has been done to help you, or I would argue, to help others. These definitions were stolen with gratitude from the internet. In his book, The Generosity Path, UU fundraiser Mark Ewert talks about how we can all build generosity into our lives. Ewert paraphrases the Buddha. Giving brings happiness at every stage of its expression. We experience joy in forming the intention to be generous. We experience joy in the actual act of giving something. And we experience joy in remembering the fact we have given. I have to say this applied to my donation experience in Solon. I felt joy at every stage of the process. Scientific studies have proven that giving, generosity, and gratitude make us feel good. Our hormones and brain activity reflect pleasure with these activities. Sociological experiments also bear this out. In one study, college students were given $5 a day to either spend on themselves or to spend on someone else. The students who spent on someone else felt happier at the end of the day than the students who spent on themselves. So we know that giving feels good, generosity feels good, and gratitude feels good. And we like to feel good, right? But what if we could feel even better? What if we could make giving, generosity, and gratitude a spiritual practice? Lauren Tyler Wright, author of Giving, the Sacred Art, Creating a Lifestyle of Generosity, advocates making generosity a spiritual practice for your own sakes. She says, generosity can give you joy. It can remind you of the purpose of life. It can give you a greater connection with the vast expanse of humanity, and it can give you the power to change the world. Practicing the sacred art of giving helps replace the narrow perspective of me with an expansive view of we. She encourages us to look at giving as a way to live out our religious beliefs. Wright also says that adopting a lifestyle of generosity is about more than writing checks. It is an entire way of life. It is about how we look at other people and react. It is about how we spend our weekends. It is about how we use our talents. We are called on to embody generosity. Where do we start building this life and spiritual practice of giving, generosity, and gratitude? One way is to learn about the lives of those who have embodied generosity, such as the Buddha. You don't have to give away all your worldly goods. You just have to become more intentional and mindful about what you give, how you give, why you give, and how much you give. My mentor on this journey to generosity as spiritual practice is Janice Cheney, one of the most giving, generous, grateful people I have ever known. Janice donated strategically to causes that were near and dear to her heart. She donated her talents by serving on boards and donated with her pocketbook. She donated to causes within the UUA that I didn't even know existed. She exemplified gratitude, whether for Unistar Camp, Prairie Public, or for her UU congregation that she loved so much. Thinking of her example makes my heart grow and glow. We can begin to create a lifestyle of generosity by noticing opportunities for giving. When practiced consistently with intention, generosity can become a spiritual practice. Giving can transform our lives, the lives of others, the life of the community, and indeed the world. Think about Greta Thunberg, who gave generously of her time to a cause she cared about, first by just sitting at her school in protest, and now by leading a worldwide movement for addressing climate change. Her generosity is transforming the world. Ewert talks about starting where you are to build a life centered on being generous. He tells us that in building a generous life, you should trust your intuition and emotion to guide you. Ewert also says that the main expressions of giving are time, skill, care, intelligence, gifts, and money. Although giving is not all about money, Ewert acknowledges that money is often the best gift to help organizations achieve their missions. He also emphasizes that, with any change, the new behavior must be practiced. If you decide to be more intentional with giving, it will take time to get to where you want to be. I don't mean to make this process of building a spiritual practice around giving sound easy. I cannot say I have a spiritual practice of giving, though building such a practice is now something I will explore further. I do believe we all have the capacity to become more intentional or spiritual about our giving. We naturally give generously and with gratitude to the causes we believe in, to entities whose values line up with our own. Our church is a natural recipient of our giving, generosity, and gratitude. In our spiritual community, we experience a sense of belonging and a sense of the divine as we feel it. We experience community on many levels. As you contemplate what you will pledge to this church next year, think about what this congregation means to you. Are you grateful for a sense of belonging and safety to express your views? Do you feel gratitude for the education and love our children receive? Do you appreciate the music and programs from the pulpit? Do you feel gratitude for the work with our water protectors? Do you have gratitude for our new interim minister and our wonderful staff? We long for a called minister to provide spiritual direction and pastoral care. Are you grateful for the work that will be done to accomplish full-time called ministry? I was recently explaining to a friend that the UU seeks to change the culture of Bismarck, Mandan. She said back to me, "It already has." I cannot tell you how that filled my heart with gratitude for all of us. For the coming year, this UU congregation will need volunteers in many areas of church life. We will also have the usual expenses for staffing, social action, utilities, and the like. The bulk of the budget for next year will go towards completing our interim ministry and calling a permanent full-time minister. The board has created a tentative budget that anticipates about $98,000 in pledges, which is a 10% increase from last year. Mark Ewert reminds us that when we ask our community for support, we are giving a gift to that community. We are giving donors the opportunity to be giving and generous, to feel gratitude, and to feel a spiritual connection they would not otherwise have. The Stewardship Drive gives us all an opportunity to experience giving, generosity, and gratitude in spiritual connection with each other. Our stewardship packets contain information about how you might calculate your gifts and the pledge form itself. Please look the materials over and contact me if you have any questions. Discuss with your family or with yourself and your cats, which is what I do, the gratitude you feel for this UU congregation and the generosity you would like to experience in the coming year. Please pick your packet up in the back of the church after the service. The deadline to return your pledges is November 1, or at least that's our goal date. Once the final pledge numbers are known, the board will finalize the budget for presentation to the congregation at the annual meeting on December 8th. If you have questions or would like a deeper discussion about these topics, please join me in the library between services today or any other Sunday in October. Mark Ewert uses a question when challenging himself to be generous on his life path. What is the most generous response I can make? Walt Whitman said, "The habit of giving only enhances the desire to give." Let's cultivate generous response and the habit of giving together in community. I am grateful for this place and for all of you.
Celebrate, let's all come together.